Okay, for this particular design, the bead heart square, I'm going to show you how to work the beads. But firstly, I thought I'd just refresh you on how to thread the beads onto the yarn. Now you need to thread all the beads onto the yarn before working the square, and just keep pushing them down the yarn until you actually need them. The simplest way to thread on the beads is if you're able to get hold of these wonderful dental loops, which I normally buy when I'm over in America, but otherwise if you could simply just thread sewing thread onto a fine needle and create a loop with the sewing thread, it's the same sort of principle. So to thread them on, if you could just pass the end of the yarn through the loop and then double it over and simply thread the beads on by passing them through the straight end of the loop and down and onto the yarn, down over the double yarn and then onto the single strand of yarn. It's very, very simple. Do that again. Pass it down the straight part over the loop, down the double thickness of the yarn and onto the single strand of yarn. Okay, so you can see, and just carry on doing that until you've got all the beads you need threaded onto your ball of yarn. Okay, so I'll just move these out of the way and then I can show you how to work the actual beads on the square. Now I've already prepared so many rows of the square showing you the first 3 placements of the beads. So now I'm going to do the next group of beads, which is on my 23rd row, and the bead is represented by the dark square on the chart. So for my 23rd row, reading from the chart, I need to knit 17 stitches before I place the bead. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay, so I need to bead the next stitch, bead 1. So to do that, simply slide the bead down the yarn as close to the right hand needle as possible and bring the yarn forward between the needles to the right side of the work. Slip my next stitch purlwise, which is the stitch I'm beading, and then take the yarn back to the wrong side of work between the needles, leaving the bead sitting in front of the slip stitch. And then for my chart it's telling me to knit the next 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to bead again the next stitch. So again, I'm slipping the bead down the yarn as close to the right hand needle as possible. Bring the yarn forward between the needles with the bead. Slip the next stitch purlwise. Take the yarn back to the wrong side of work between the needles, leaving the bead sitting in front of the stitch, and then knit to the end of the row. Just keep sliding the beads down the yarn until you need them. Okay, so if I spread my work out, You can see I've placed the beads and they're just nicely sitting in front of the slip stitch, and then I will just purl that slip stitch on the return row to lock the beads in position. They will find their natural home, so don't worry if there's, they look like they're not actually in the centre of the slip stitch. By the time you've worked the return row, they'll be sitting nicely and securely in front of the slip stitch.